I watched Marcus's mother slap the hospital admission papers onto my kitchen counter, her perfectly manicured nails clicking against the marble like the ticking of a clock I'd heard before. In another life. In my first life. "Rebecca, Marcus needs you at the hospital," she said, her voice dripping with the kind of entitlement that only comes from decades of getting exactly what you want. "He's having complications from the surgery. You need to come immediately and sign the consent forms for the emergency procedure." I took a slow sip of my coffee, my hands steady in a way they never had been before. Before I died at 32 in a car accident, rushing to this very hospital because Marcus had called saying he needed me urgently. Before I woke up 10 years in the past, 22 again, standing at the altar about to make the biggest mistake of my life. "No," I said simply. Catherine Whitmore's face went through a fascinating transformation. Confusion, then disbelief, then a rage so pure it made her shake. "Excuse me?" I said, "No, I'm not coming." I set down my coffee cup and met her eyes with a calmness that came from knowing exactly how this story ended. Or rather, how it used to end. "Marcus has you, his father, and his sister there. I'm sure between the three of you, you can handle signing some forms. You're his wife. This is your duty." The word duty almost made me laugh. Duty. For 3 years in my previous life, I'd performed my duty beautifully. I dropped everything every time Marcus called. Every time his mother demanded my presence. Every time his sister needed something. I'd sacrifice my career opportunities, my friendships, my own health, all in the name of duty. And where had duty gotten me? Dead in a car crash at 32, racing to the hospital because Marcus claimed he was dying, only to find him sitting up in bed with a mild fever, annoyed that I'd taken so long. I never made it back home that night. A drunk driver had other plans. "Find someone else," I said, turning back to my laptop where my thesis proposal glowed on the screen. The PhD program I'd abandoned in my first life to support Marcus's career. The research that I'd let die because his needs always came first. Not this time. Catherine's voice rose to a shriek. "How dare you, after everything this family has done for you? We took you in when your own family didn't want you." There it was, the weapon they'd used against me for years. My own family's rejection, thrown in my face every time I hesitated to comply. My mother had been the one to push me toward Marcus. "He's from a good family, Rebecca, stable, wealthy. You'll never have to worry." What she'd meant was, "We're tired of supporting you. Let someone else deal with you." My sister Emma had been more direct. "You're so lucky Marcus wants you. God knows why. You should be grateful someone's willing to marry you." Even my father had chimed in, disappointed that his youngest daughter hadn't inherited the family talent for business. "At least you'll be taken care of, that's something." So I'd married Marcus at 22, desperate for belonging, for love, for a family that wanted me. I'd learned too late that the Whitmores didn't want me either. They wanted a servant, a caretaker, someone to manage Marcus's life while he pursued his dreams, someone to host their parties, someone to smile and nod and never, ever put herself first. "Your family didn't want me," I said to Catherine now, my voice level. "Your family wanted an unpaid assistant with a marriage license. There's a difference." I stood up, gathering my things. I had a meeting with Professor Hartley in an hour, the professor whose research team I'd joined this time around, whose recommendation would open doors I'd never known existed. "I'm going to campus. Let yourself out." "Rebecca!" Catherine's face was purple now. "If you walk out that door, there will be consequences." I paused at the doorway and looked back at her. In my previous life, that threat would have stopped me cold. I would have caved, apologized, rushed to the hospital to play my role. "I'm sure there will be," I said. "I'm counting on it." The first time around, I'd met Marcus in college. He was charming, attentive, everything a 20-year-old girl could want. He'd pursued me relentlessly, made me feel special, made me feel chosen. I fell hard and fast. The cracks started showing after the wedding. The first time I was sick, really sick with pneumonia, I'd called Marcus at work. I can't breathe properly, I'd told him, my voice weak. I think I need to go to the ER. Babe, I'm in the middle of a huge presentation. Can't you just take some medicine and see how you feel? I'll be home around 9. I'd ended up calling an Uber to take myself to the emergency room, where I spent 6 hours alone before being admitted for 3 days. Marcus visited once for 20 minutes, complaining the entire time about how the hospital parking was expensive. 2 weeks later, he'd called me in a panic. Rebecca, I think I'm having a heart attack. You need to come to my office right now. I'd left my own doctor's appointment, a follow-up for the pneumonia, and driven across town in rush hour traffic. When I arrived, Marcus was sitting at his desk, looking perfectly fine. Oh, I feel better now, he'd said dismissively. Probably just heartburn, but since you're here, can you pick up my dry cleaning? I have a work dinner tonight. That pattern repeated itself throughout our marriage. My emergencies were inconveniences. His emergencies were my top priority, even when they weren't actually emergencies at all. The worst was the night of my company's anniversary dinner. I'd been working at a marketing firm, one of the few parts of my life I'd tried to hold on to. They were celebrating 20 years, and I'd been promised a promotion. The CEO wanted to announce it that night. At 6 p.m., as I was getting ready, Marcus called. I need you at home, now. My mom is having a breakdown about the charity gala seating arrangements, and she needs you to fix it. Marcus, I can't. This is important for my career. Your career? He'd laughed. Actually laughed. Babe, your job is cute and all, but my family events are our real priority. You can miss one work party. They'll understand. I'd missed the dinner, and the promotion went to someone else. 3 months later, they restructured my department, and I was laid off. We need someone more committed, my boss had said, and I couldn't even argue because I'd proven I wasn't. I'd never worked again. Marcus's mother made it clear that a proper Whitmore wife didn't need a job. She needed to be available. Available for every call, every demand, every manufactured emergency. The real emergency came 5 years in, but I didn't recognize it as an emergency at first. I'd been feeling tired, increasingly short of breath. I'd mentioned it to Marcus one morning. You're probably just out of shape, he'd said, not looking up from his phone. Maybe try yoga or something. I'd tried to bring it up again a week later. Marcus, I'm really not feeling well. I think something's wrong. Rebecca, I have that investor meeting tomorrow. Can we not do the hypochondria thing right now? My mom gets like this too, always convinced she's dying. It's dramatic and exhausting. So I'd said nothing more. I'd pushed through the fatigue, the breathlessness, the chest pain that came and went. I'd hosted Marcus's birthday party, attended his sister's wedding, organized his mother's charity luncheon. And then one night, Marcus called at 11 p.m. Rebecca, I have a fever. I think it might be that new virus everyone's talking about. You need to take me to the ER. I'd gotten out of bed despite my own exhaustion, despite the pressure in my chest that had been building for weeks. I'd driven Marcus to the hospital. He'd been admitted for observation, a fever of 99.8 degrees, and he'd been terrified he was dying. The doctors cleared him after 2 hours. Nothing serious, just a mild virus. On the drive home, exhausted and in pain, I'd finally said, Marcus, after we get home, I need you to take me to the hospital. Something's really wrong. I can barely breathe. He'd sighed, heavy and annoyed. It's 3 a.m, Rebecca. Can't you just sleep it off? You're probably just tired from staying up with me. I'm serious. I think you're always serious. Every little ache is a crisis with you. My mom was right. You're too sensitive. I'd driven home in silence, each breath harder than the last. When we got home, Marcus went straight to bed. I'd sat in my car trying to decide if I was overreacting, if I was being dramatic like he said. That's when the pain hit, sharp and overwhelming. I'd fumbled for my phone, tried to call 911, but my hands were shaking too badly. I'd tried to honk the horn to wake Marcus, but I couldn't reach it. I tried to call Marcus one last time. It rang 6 times and went to voicemail. I died in that car alone while my husband slept peacefully inside, annoyed by my sensitivity. But I didn't stay dead. I woke up at 22, the morning of my wedding, with every memory intact, every ignored plea for help, every belittled concern, every time I'd nearly killed myself rushing to Marcus's side, only to find him perfectly fine and irritated that I hadn't brought him the right sandwich. I'd called off the wedding, returned the dress, endured my family's fury and disappointment. "You're throwing away your only chance," my mother had screamed. "Marcus is the best thing that ever happened to you," Emma had sneered. "You'll regret this." My father had simply looked at me with disgust. I raised a fool. But I'd stood firm, and after the dust settled, I'd done what I should have done the first time. I'd focused on myself. I'd thrown myself into my graduate studies. I'd started therapy. I'd built a life that didn't revolve around making myself small enough to fit into someone else's vision. The Whitmores, however, hadn't gotten the message. They kept trying to pull me back in, acting as if I was still somehow obligated to them. Marcus would call, his voice smooth and manipulative. "I miss you, Becca. We made a mistake. Let's try again." His mother would show up at my apartment. "You're being childish. Marcus has forgiven you for embarrassing our family. You should be grateful." His sister would corner me on campus. "You ruined his life, you know. He was devastated. The least you can do is be there for him as a friend." I'd held firm for 2 years, building walls they couldn't penetrate. I'd changed my number, moved to a new apartment they didn't know about. I'd built a life they weren't part of, and then, 6 months ago, everything had shifted. Marcus had called from a number I didn't recognize, and I'd answered without thinking. His voice had been different. Genuine, or so it seemed. "Rebecca, I owe you an apology, a real one. I've been in therapy. I've realized how badly I treated you, how my family treated you. I was wrong. I just want you to know that, even if you never speak to me again." It had felt real, convincing. Like he'd actually changed. I'd agreed to coffee, then dinner, then more. Before I knew it, we were dating again. But this time, I told myself I had boundaries. This time would be different. It wasn't different. It was exactly the same, just slower, more subtle. Marcus's requests started small. "Can you help me pick out an outfit for this interview? Would you mind looking over my resume? My mom wants to see you. She misses you." And stupidly, knowing exactly where this road led, I'd started saying yes. Because part of me, the part that still carried the wounds of my family's rejection, wanted to believe that someone could change, that I could be loved properly this time. 3 months ago, Marcus proposed again. And in a moment of weakness, of hope, of desperate stupidity, I said yes. I'd told myself I was going into this with eyes open. I'd told myself that with my foreknowledge, I could prevent the worst of it. I could maintain my boundaries. I could have both, the relationship and my independence. But the moment that ring slid onto my finger, the demands started again. "Rebecca, I need you to postpone your thesis defense. The date conflicts with my company retreat." "Rebecca, my mom needs you to plan her birthday party. Yes, I know you have finals. This is important." "Rebecca, why are you being so selfish? You're choosing school over family again." The breaking point came 2 weeks ago. I'd been in the library, working on my research, when I'd felt it. That same chest pain from my previous life. Sharp, frightening, different from anxiety or stress. I'd called Marcus, my hands shaking. "Something's wrong. I'm having chest pains. I think I need to go to the hospital." There was a pause. Then a sigh. "Babe, I'm at a really important client lunch. Can you just take an Uber to urgent care? I'll meet you after." "Marcus, I'm scared. This feels serious." "You're always scared. Remember last month when you thought you had appendicitis and it was just gas? Just go to urgent care, and if it's actually serious, call me back." Another pause. "You know what? I can leave early if it makes you feel better. But Rebecca, we need to talk about this pattern. You panic about every little thing, and it's exhausting. My mom says—" I'd hung up on him. I'd called an Uber. I'd gone to the ER alone. The doctors ran tests and found nothing acute, but they wanted me to follow up with a cardiologist. "Your symptoms are concerning," the ER doctor said. "Don't ignore this." Marcus showed up 3 hours later, annoyed. "See, you're fine. This is exactly what I mean about overreacting." I'd looked at him, really looked at him, and seen my first life playing out again in slow motion. Me in a car, dying, while he slept. Him at my funeral, playing the devastated widower, accepting condolences while his mother whispered about how I'd always been dramatic about my health. That night, I'd taken off the ring. "What are you doing?" Marcus had asked, his voice sharp. "I'm done," I'd said simply. "Done? Rebecca, you can't be serious. You're upset because I didn't drop everything for your panic attack. Get out. You're being irrational. Get out." He'd left, but not quietly. He'd called me 40 times that night. His mother showed up the next morning, started the threats and manipulation. His sister sent me pages of text messages about what an ungrateful, selfish person I was. I'd blocked them all, changed my locks, moved forward until today, when Catherine showed up with her hospital forms and her demands. I'd been waiting for this. In my previous life, I'd learned that Marcus's emergencies came in waves, usually when he wanted something. This surgery had been scheduled weeks ago, a minor procedure to remove a benign cyst, nothing life-threatening, nothing requiring emergency consent forms, but Marcus had learned that the word emergency made me move, made me compliant, made me controllable. Not anymore. I arrived at Professor Hartley's office to find her reviewing my latest research proposal, her expression bright with interest. "Rebecca, this is exceptional work," she said. "I want to bring you on as a full research assistant. Paid position, and your thesis would be directly tied to our grant project. This could open significant doors for you." It was the opportunity I'd lost in my first life. The chance I'd sacrificed for a man who couldn't be bothered to take me to the hospital when I was dying. "I accept," I said immediately. "Wonderful, we'll start Monday." "Oh, and Rebecca, I've already reached out to several colleagues about your work. I think you'll find a lot of interest from programs around the country. Your research is exactly what the field needs right now." I walked out of that meeting feeling lighter than I had in months, years even. This was what my life was supposed to look like. My phone buzzed. Marcus's sister, Vanessa. "You heartless bitch. He's asking for you. He needs you. How can you be so cruel?" I blocked her number and kept walking. Another buzz. My mother. Catherine called me. "She's right. You're being selfish. After everything that family tried to do for you. This is why your own family can't even stand you." I stared at that message for a long time. In my previous life, words like that would have shattered me, would have sent me running back, apologizing, desperate to prove I wasn't the terrible person they said I was. Now, with the clarity of having lived through it once, I could see the manipulation for what it was. My mother had never protected me. My family had never wanted me except as a burden they could offload onto someone else. I blocked her too. That night, as I was settling in with my research notes, someone pounded on my door, not knocked, pounded with the kind of violence that shook the frame. "Rebecca, open this door right now, ipapa," my father's voice. I looked through the peephole. He was red-faced, furious, with my mother and Emma flanking him like an angry delegation. "I know you're in there," he shouted. "Yeah, open up or I'm calling the landlord." I pulled out my phone and started recording. Then I opened the door with the chain still engaged. "What do you want?" "What do I want?" My father's voice was incredulous. "I want to know what the hell is wrong with you. You embarrassed us once by calling off that wedding, and now you're doing it again? And refusing to help Marcus when he's in the hospital?" "He's not in an emergency," I said calmly. "He had a scheduled minor surgery. He's fine." "That's not the point," Emma pushed forward. "The point is that you're being a selfish bitch like always. You've never cared about anyone but yourself." I almost laughed. Emma, who'd borrowed my car and totaled it, then blamed me for not having better insurance. Emma, who'd stolen my college boyfriend and then acted like I was dramatic for being upset. Emma, who'd asked me to co-sign her credit cards and then defaulted, ruining my credit for years. "You're projecting," I said. "Don't use your fancy college words on me," she snapped. "We all know you're not as smart as you think you are. Marcus was the best thing that ever happened to you, and you threw him away, twice." "Marcus ignored me when I had a medical emergency 2 weeks ago," I said, my voice steady. "He told me I was being dramatic and exhausting. So I left. And now that he wants something from me, suddenly it's my duty to come running. That's not how this works anymore. My mother's face twisted with disgust. You were always weak, always playing the victim. Poor Rebecca, nobody understands her. Nobody appreciates her. You know what? You're right. We don't appreciate you because there's nothing to appreciate. The words should have hurt. In my first life, they would have destroyed me. Now they just made me tired. Are we done? I asked. No, we're not done. My father stepped closer to the door at me. You're going to go to that hospital, apologize to that family, and fix this mess you created. Do you understand me? Or what? He blinked. What? Or what? I repeated. What exactly will you do if I don't comply? Disown me? You already did that emotionally years ago. Cut me off financially? I pay my own bills. Tell me what a disappointment I am? I've heard it my entire life. So tell me, Dad, what's the threat here? He sputtered, unable to form words. Here's what's going to happen, I said, my voice cold. You're going to leave my apartment. You're going to stop contacting me. And you're going to accept that I'm not your puppet anymore. I'm not Marcus's servant. I'm not anyone's punching bag. I'm done. You ungrateful, Emma started. Get out now, or I'm calling the police and showing them this recording of you threatening me. My father's face went from red to purple. You wouldn't dare. I held up my phone, the recording clearly visible and still running. Try me. They left, but not before my mother got in a final shot. You'll regret this. When you're alone and miserable, don't come crying to us. I closed the door and leaned against it, my heart pounding but my resolve firm. I wouldn't be alone. I had my research, my education, my future stretching out before me, free from people who only valued me when I was useful to them. My phone rang again. Another unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. Rebecca. Marcus's voice was weak, pathetic. Baby, please, I need you. No, you don't. I'm in pain. The surgery. There were complications. I'm scared. I'd heard this script before. Different words, same manipulation. You have your family there, Marcus. I'm sure they're taking excellent care of you. It's not the same. I need you. You're my fiancé. No, I'm not. I gave you back the ring, remember? I'm not your fiancé. I'm not your girlfriend. I'm not your anything. You can't mean that. His voice shifted, hardening. After everything I've done for you. What exactly have you done for me, Marcus? I asked. What have you ever actually done for me that wasn't about making your life easier? Silence. That's what I thought. Don't call me again. Rebecca, wait. I hung up. The texts started immediately. From Marcus, from his family, from my family. All variations on the same theme. I was heartless, selfish, cruel. How could I abandon someone in their time of need? I turned off my phone and slept better than I had in weeks. The next morning, I met with my thesis advisor. Professor Hartley had arranged for me to present my preliminary findings to a group of visiting scholars, and the presentation went better than I dared hope. Two of them asked for my contact information. One mentioned a postdoc position opening up at Berkeley in the fall. These were the opportunities I'd sacrificed in my first life. The doors I'd closed because Marcus's schedule always came first. When I turned my phone back on that afternoon, I had 127 messages. I deleted them without reading and called my landlord about getting a security system installed. The harassment continued for 3 days, then, abruptly, it stopped. I should have known better than to trust the silence. On the fourth day, Professor Hartley called me into her office, her expression troubled. Rebecca, I received a very disturbing call this morning from someone claiming to be your fiancé. My blood ran cold. What did he say? He said you've been having a mental health crisis, that you're off your medications and making concerning decisions. He asked me to contact him immediately if you showed any signs of instability. She paused. He was very convincing. This was new. Marcus hadn't tried this tactic in my first life, but then again, I'd never stood up to him like this before. What did you tell him? I asked carefully. I told him I couldn't discuss a student's personal information with anyone and that he should contact you directly if he had concerns. She leaned forward. Rebecca, I want you to know that in all my interactions with you, I've seen nothing but a dedicated, brilliant young woman with a bright future. Whatever is going on in your personal life, it hasn't affected your work, but if you need resources, counseling, legal help, the university has options. Relief washed over me. Thank you, Professor. I appreciate that more than you know. I take it he's not actually your fiancé? Not anymore, and he doesn't like being told no. She nodded slowly. I've been teaching for 30 years, Rebecca. I've seen this pattern before. Men who can't handle their partners having success, who sabotage their careers, who make them choose between their own ambitions and the relationship. She met my eyes. Don't choose the relationship. You're too talented to waste your life making yourself smaller for someone who can't handle your light. I left that meeting feeling validated in a way my own family had never made me feel. But the campaign against me was just beginning. That night, someone slashed my tires. The building's security footage was conveniently out of service. The next day, my sister showed up at the coffee shop where I was studying and made a scene, screaming about what a terrible person I was until the manager had to escort her out. The day after that, I received a certified letter from Marcus's lawyer. He was suing me for breach of promise, an archaic legal concept that barely existed anymore, but apparently he'd found some angle to pursue. I took the letter to the university's legal aid office. The law student who reviewed my case looked incredulous. Wow, this is a stretch. There's almost no chance this will go anywhere, but you'll need to respond. The good news is that his lawyer included some threats in here that cross into harassment territory. You might want to consider a restraining order. Can I do that? Absolutely, especially given the escalating behavior you've described. The slashed tires alone would be enough if you can prove it. I filed for the restraining order that afternoon. Marcus's response came swiftly and viciously. Suddenly, stories started circulating on campus. I was a gold digger who'd seduced Marcus and was now trying to extort his family. I was mentally unstable. I'd faked a pregnancy to trap him. I'd stolen from his mother. None of it was true, but mudsticks. Professor Hartley called me in again. The department had received some concerning emails about you, anonymous but clearly coordinated, making serious accusations. My stomach dropped. And I told him they were obviously a smear campaign from someone with a personal vendetta, and that your work speaks for itself. She smiled grimly. I've been in academia long enough to recognize character assassination when I see it. But Rebecca, this is serious. Whoever is doing this is trying to destroy your reputation and your opportunities. I know. The restraining order hearing is in 3 days, right? I nodded. Good. In the meantime, I want you to document everything. Every message, every encounter, every instance of harassment. And I want you to know that this department stands behind you. The hearing was brutal. Marcus showed up in a wheelchair, looking pale and weak. His mother dabbed at her eyes with a tissue. His lawyer painted me as a cruel, heartless woman who'd abandoned her fiancé in his hour of need and was now trying to silence him with false allegations. My lawyer presented the evidence methodically. The texts, the calls, the messages from his family, the slashed tires, the professional sabotage, his attempts, the harassment campaign. The judge listened to both sides, his expression unreadable. Then Marcus's lawyer made a mistake. Your Honor, my client is not the villain here. He's a victim of a woman who refuses to honor her commitments. When he needed her most after a serious surgery, she abandoned him. What kind of person does that? The judge looked up sharply. Counsel, are you arguing that your client is entitled to this young woman's presence and care? I'm arguing that she made a commitment she ended. She returned the engagement ring and ended the relationship. That's her right. What happened after that point is what we're here to discuss. He turned to me. Ms. Chen, when did you last have any voluntary contact with Mr. Whitmore? 2 weeks before his surgery, Your Honor, when I ended our engagement and returned the ring. And since then, have you initiated any contact with him or his family? No, Your Honor. All contact has been initiated by them. Including showing up at your home, your workplace, your family members harassing you? Yes, Your Honor. He looked at Marcus's lawyer. Counsel, your client had a scheduled non-emergency surgery. Ms. Chen was under no legal or moral obligation to be present. The fact that he and his family have engaged in an escalating campaign of harassment because she exercised her right to end a relationship is exactly why restraining orders exist. The order was granted. Marcus, his mother, his father, and his sister were all ordered to stay at least 100 yards away from me, my home, my workplace, and my school. No contact of any kind. Marcus's face as the judge read the order was almost worth everything I'd been through. Almost. Because the retaliation didn't stop. It just got more creative. My family escalated their campaign. My father tried to get me expelled by claiming I'd used his identity to take out student loans. A lie. Since I'd paid my own way through school with scholarships and part-time work, Emma created fake social media profiles and posted horrible things pretending to be me. My mother showed up at my apartment building and convinced the landlord I was dangerous and unstable. Each attack failed, but each one took energy to fight. Energy I needed for my research, my studies, my future. I was exhausted. Running on fumes. Beginning to wonder if standing up for myself was worth this constant battle. And then, 3 months after the restraining order, everything changed. I was in the university library, working late, when my phone rang. An unknown number, but this time with a California area code I didn't recognize. Rebecca Chen? Yes? This is Dr. Patricia Morrison calling from Stanford Medical Center. I'm calling about your mother, Diane Chen. My heart stuttered. Despite everything, the conditioning ran deep. Is she okay? She's stable now, but she was admitted yesterday with a severe cardiac event. She's asking for you. Old Rebecca would have dropped everything. Would have booked the first flight, would have come running despite the years of abuse and neglect. The new Rebecca, the one who'd lived through this once before, asked different questions. Is she in immediate danger? No, she's stable. But she's very insistent that she needs to see you. I understand. Thank you for calling, Dr. Morrison. I hung up and sat there, staring at my research notes. In my previous life, I would have interpreted she's asking for you as she needs you. I would have read desperation and regret into it. I would have thought that maybe finally she'd realized how badly she'd treated me. Now I understood that she's asking for you probably meant she has demands and you're the only one who will put up with her. I called the hospital back and asked to speak to Dr. Morrison again. Dr. Morrison, I have a question. Is my mother actually asking for me specifically, or is she asking for someone to do things for her? There was a pause. I'm not sure I understand the question. Is she saying, I need to see Rebecca, I need to apologize, I need to make things right? Or is she saying, where's Rebecca? She should be here. Someone needs to handle this. Another pause, longer this time. I believe it's more the latter. That's what I thought. Thank you for your honesty, doctor. I'll send flowers. You're not coming? No, we're estranged. She has other family members who can support her. I hung up and went back to my research. My phone exploded within an hour. Emma, my father, even some extended family members I barely knew. How can you be so heartless? Your mother is dying and you won't even visit? You're a terrible daughter. We always knew you were selfish, but this proves it. I turned off my phone and kept working. 3 days later, I got another call. My mother had been discharged and was recovering at home. According to Emma's voicemail, she was heartbroken that I hadn't come. I didn't call back. But karma, it seemed, had a sense of irony. 2 weeks after my mother's hospitalization, I got a call from a number that made my breath catch. Marcus's number, the one that should have been blocked. I answered against my better judgment. It wasn't Marcus, it was his father. Rebecca. His voice was tight, controlled. I know about the restraining order, but I need to inform you of something. Marcus is in the hospital. He's very sick. The old fear tried to grip me. The old programming that said I should care, should respond, should go. I'm sorry to hear that, I said carefully, but I'm not sure why you're telling me. Because he's asking for you, he needs you. There it was. The same words, the same manipulation. Mr. Whitmore, I have a restraining order against your entire family. You're violating it by calling me. This is an emergency. Is he dying right now? Is he actively coding? What? No, but then it's not an emergency that requires me to violate a court order. I suggest you focus on your son's actual medical care rather than trying to manipulate me into coming. Goodbye. I hung up and immediately called my lawyer to report the violation. The calls kept coming, though, from hospital staff who'd been manipulated by the family, from Marcus's friends, even from my own family who seemed to think this was their opportunity to reconcile. See, Emma said in one message, this is what happens when you're cruel. Karma comes back around. Marcus might die and you'll have to live with that. But I knew something they didn't know. I knew that Marcus's pattern was to fake or exaggerate emergencies to get attention. I knew that he was fully capable of making himself seem sicker than he was. And I knew that even if he was genuinely sick, it wasn't my responsibility to save him. Not anymore. I was in Professor Hartley's office discussing my thesis timeline when my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. This is Vanessa. I don't care about the restraining order. My brother is dying and you need to know that you're killing him. His condition is getting worse because of the stress you're causing. If he dies, his blood is on your hands. I showed the message to Professor Hartley. She read it and shook her head by saying, that's not how medicine works. That's emotional manipulation. I know, I said, but it still gets to me. What if I'm wrong? What if he's actually dying and I'm being cruel? Then he has doctors and family to care for him. Rebecca, you're not a medical professional. You're not his wife. You're not even his friend anymore. You're a woman he abused and harassed who finally set boundaries. Whatever is happening with his health is not your responsibility. Logically, I knew she was right. Emotionally, the programming ran deep. That night, unable to sleep, I did something I knew I shouldn't. I created a fake social media account and looked up Marcus. His page was full of pictures from the hospital, him looking pale and weak, his family surrounding his bed, captions about fighting hard, staying strong, surrounded by love. And then I saw the dates. The photos were from different days, but they'd all been posted in the last week, carefully curated to create a narrative of decline. But in the background of one photo, I could see the TV screen, showing a football game that hadn't aired yet. The photos were old, or staged, or both. I dug deeper, something I'd gotten good at in my previous life when I'd needed to track Marcus's lies. I found his mother's page. She'd shared an article about a new treatment center Marcus was valiantly trying. The article was from 3 years ago. I found his sister's page. She'd posted about keeping vigil at the hospital, but her location tag was at a restaurant downtown. It was all a show, a carefully orchestrated campaign to make me feel guilty, to make me come back, to make me resume my role as his emotional support animal. The rage that filled me was cold and clear. I screenshot everything, dated it, documented it, sent it all to my lawyer with a note, further evidence of harassment and manipulation. And then I posted my own message on my own social media, the first personal post I'd made in months. Some people will fake an entire emergency to manipulate you back into their lives. They'll use guilt, fear, and obligation as weapons. They'll make you doubt your own reality and your own boundaries. But you don't owe anyone access to your life, especially people who've proven they'll hurt you. Protect your peace, trust your gut, and remember that anyone who truly loves you won't need to manipulate you into proving it. I didn't mention Marcus by name. I didn't have to. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Dozens of messages from people I barely knew, sharing their own stories of manipulation and escape. Women who'd been where I was, who understood. And one message from someone I didn't expect. Rebecca, this is Dr. Morrison from Stanford Medical. I want to apologize. Your mother's team has been pressuring me to contact you again, claiming she's gotten worse. But I've reviewed her file and she's recovering normally. I should have been more clear in my initial call. You made the right choice. I'm sorry I contributed to any manipulation. I thanked her and felt another piece of the guilt fall away. But the Whitmores weren't done. A week later, I received a letter. Not from a lawyer this time, but from Marcus himself. It must have been sent before the restraining order was served because it had an old postmark. Against my better judgment, I opened it. Rebecca, I know you think I don't understand what I did wrong. I know you think I haven't changed, but I have. I've spent these months in therapy, really looking at my behavior, at how I treated you. You were right about everything. I did take you for granted. I did prioritize my needs over yours. I did ignore your emergencies while expecting you to drop everything for mine. I was selfish and manipulative, and I see that now. The surgery had complications, real ones, not made up to get your attention. I have an infection that's not responding to antibiotics, and the doctors are worried. I might need another surgery. I'm scared, Rebecca. Really scared. But I'm not writing to manipulate you into coming back. I'm writing to say I'm sorry. I'm sorry I didn't take you to the hospital when you needed me. I'm sorry I made you feel like your pain didn't matter. I'm sorry I wasted the years we had together by being too selfish to appreciate what I had. If I don't make it through this, I want you to know that you were right to leave. You deserve better than what I gave you. You deserve someone who shows up for you the way you always showed up for everyone else. I hope you build the life you dreamed of. I hope you find someone who treats you the way you deserve. And I hope someday you can forgive me even though I don't deserve it. I'm sorry, Marcus. I read it 3 times looking for the manipulation, looking for the guilt trip, looking for the hook that would pull me back in. It sounded sincere. It hit all the right notes. It was exactly what I'd wanted to hear in my previous life when I was dying alone in my car. But something about it felt off. I called my lawyer. He sent me a letter, I said. It sounds like an apology, but I can't tell if it's genuine or another manipulation. Read it to me. I did. She was quiet for a moment. Rebecca, I'm not a therapist, but I've seen a lot of abusers go through the cycle. Abuse, then apologize, then love bomb, then abuse again. This letter has all the hallmarks of the apologize phase. Acknowledge the wrong behavior, accept responsibility, express regret, but notice what's not there. What? A concrete plan for change. I'm in therapy is vague. I see my mistakes is words, but there's no here's what I'm doing differently or here's how I'm making amends. It's designed to make you feel heard without actually committing to anything different. She was right. The letter was all emotion and no action. Plus, she continued, the whole if I don't make it thing, that's manipulative as hell. He's creating urgency, making you feel like you need to respond now or you'll regret it forever. But what if he is actually dying? Then he has doctors and family to care for him. Rebecca, you're not required to set yourself on fire to keep him warm, even if he's dying, even if he's genuinely sorry. You ended that relationship for good reasons, and his health crisis doesn't erase those reasons. I tore up the letter and threw it away. But the seed of doubt had been planted. What if this time was different? What if he really had changed? What if I was being needlessly cruel? I spiraled for 3 days, unable to focus on my work, unable to sleep. And then I had a session with my therapist, a new therapist, one I'd started seeing after ending things with Marcus. I told her about the letter, about my doubts, about my guilt. She listened patiently, then asked a simple question. Rebecca, in your previous life, when Marcus ignored your medical emergency and you died, did you ever get an apology? I thought about it. No, he wasn't even there when I died. He was asleep inside the house. Right, so he never had to face the consequences of his actions. He never had to feel the guilt of knowing he let you die. He never had to change because he never had to face what he'd done. Okay. Now, in this life, you left him before that happened. You set boundaries. You protected yourself. And suddenly he's writing you letters about being sorry and understanding what he did wrong? The realization hit me like a truck. He's only sorry because I left. Exactly. He's not sorry for his behavior. He's sorry he got caught. He's sorry he lost his convenient emotional support. Person. Real change happens when someone faces consequences and does the work anyway, not when they're trying to avoid losing something they want. I felt the doubt dissolve, replaced by clarity. Marcus wasn't sorry. He was scared. Scared of being alone. Scared of facing his own mortality without someone to comfort him. Scared of a world where I wasn't available to make his life easier. But that wasn't my problem anymore. I went back to my research with renewed focus. Professor Hartley's grant project was moving forward, and my role in it was expanding. I was contributing real, meaningful work to a field I cared about. I was building relationships with colleagues who respected me. I was creating a life that was mine. And then, exactly 4 months after I ended things with Marcus, I got a call that changed everything. It was from a hospital, but not the one Marcus was supposedly dying in. Ms. Chen, this is Riverside Memorial Hospital. We have a patient here who listed you as an emergency contact, a Mr. Marcus Whitmore. My blood ran cold. What happened? He was brought in by ambulance 3 hours ago. He's stable now, but he's asking for you. Can you come? The old fear tried to grip me. The old programming kicked in. And then I remembered. I remembered dying in my car while he slept. I remembered every ignored emergency, every belittled concern, every time he'd made me feel crazy for asking for help. I remembered the restraining order, the harassment campaign, the fake photos, the manipulative letter. No, I said, I can't come. Ma'am, he's very insistent. He says it's urgent. I'm sure he does. But we're no longer in a relationship, and I have a restraining order against him and his family. I'm not his emergency contact, and I won't be coming. I suggest you contact his actual family. But is he dying right now, as in, will he be dead in the next 10 minutes? Well, no, but then it's not urgent enough to violate a court order. Please remove me from his contact list and do not call me again about him. I hung up, my hands shaking, but my resolve firm. 20 minutes later, Catherine called. I'd forgotten to block her new number. How dare you, she hissed. My son is in the hospital, truly sick this time, and you refuse to come? What kind of monster are you? The kind who learned that your family uses medical emergencies as manipulation tactics, I said calmly. I'm hanging up now. If you call again, I'll report it as a restraining order violation. He's dying, she screamed. He has sepsis. The infection spread. He might not make it through the night. Something in her voice made me pause. This sounded different, more genuine, more scared. Then I suggest you be there for him, I said, because I won't be. You heartless bitch! I hope you can live with yourself when he's dead. She hung up before I could. I sat there, my heart pounding, doubt creeping back in. What if this time it was real? What if Marcus was actually dying and I was refusing to come? What if I was actually as heartless as they said? I called my therapist's emergency line. She talked me down, reminded me that I wasn't responsible for Marcus's health, that even if he was dying, my presence wouldn't save him. But the guilt gnawed at me all night. I didn't sleep. I kept checking my phone, expecting a call that he'd died, that it was my fault, that I'd have to live with that forever. The call never came. Instead, at 8 a.m., I got a text from an unknown number, a photo. Marcus, sitting up in a hospital bed, eating breakfast, looking pale but very much alive. The message below it read, "He's fine. The sepsis scare was overblown, but good to know where you stand. Guess we know who the real villain is here." It was from Vanessa, using a new number. I stared at that photo for a long time. He was fine. He'd been fine all along, or at least not in any immediate danger, and they'd used the sepsis scare to try one more time to make me come running. I blocked the number and turned off my phone. I was done. Truly, finally done. No more doubt, No more guilt. No more wondering if I was being too harsh or too cold. They'd shown me exactly who they were, over and over again. It was time I believed them. 3 months later, I successfully defended my thesis. Professor Hartley was in the audience, beaming with pride. So were several colleagues from other universities who'd become mentors and friends. My family wasn't there. Marcus and his family weren't there. And I didn't miss them. After the defense, Professor Hartley pulled me aside. I have news. Berkeley wants you for that postdoc position. Full funding, your own research budget, the works. They were incredibly impressed with your work. It was everything I'd lost in my first life. Everything I'd sacrificed for a man who couldn't be bothered to take me to the hospital. I accept, I said immediately. I thought you might. She smiled. Rebecca, I've watched you grow this year. You've handled more adversity than most people face in a lifetime, and you've done it with grace and strength. I'm proud of you. I cried then for the first time in months. Not from sadness, but from relief. From joy, from the knowledge that I'd made it through. That night, celebrating with friends from my program, I got one final message. From Marcus, I heard about Berkeley. Congratulations, you deserve it. I want you to know that I'm okay. The infection cleared up. I'm in outpatient therapy, real therapy, not just saying it. I know you won't believe me, and I don't blame you, but I want you to know that I finally understand what I lost. Not just you, but the chance to be a better person. I hope you're happy, Rebecca. I really do. Goodbye. I read it once, then deleted it without responding. He didn't deserve my acknowledgement. He didn't deserve closure. He didn't deserve anything from me anymore. I was moving to California. I was starting a new chapter. I was building a life that was completely, entirely mine. And if Marcus had finally figured out what he'd lost, well, that was his problem to solve, not mine. Never again mine. The postdoc at Berkeley was everything I'd dreamed of and more. My research was published in major journals. I presented at international conferences. I built a reputation as a rising star in my field. And I was happy. Genuinely, deeply happy in a way I'd never been in my first life. I dated occasionally, but I was in no rush. I'd learned the hard way that being alone was better than being with someone who diminished you. 2 years into the postdoc, I got an unexpected email. It was from my mother. Rebecca, I know I have no right to contact you. I know I burned that bridge years ago, but I need you to know that I've been in therapy and I'm starting to understand how badly I failed you as a mother. I was jealous of you. You were smart and ambitious in ways I never was, and instead of being proud, I was threatened. I took out my own insecurities on you, and I let your sister do the same. I pushed you toward Marcus because I wanted you taken care of, but really, I just wanted you to be someone else's problem. I'm ashamed of that now. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't expect you to want a relationship with me, but I wanted you to know that you were right to walk away. You deserved so much better than what we gave you. I'm proud of you. I know I never said it before, and I know it's too late now, but I'm proud of who you've become. Mom, I read it several times looking for the manipulation, the hidden agenda, the trap. But unlike Marcus's letter, this one felt different. It wasn't asking for anything. It wasn't creating urgency. It was just an apology, a real one. I sat with it for a week before responding. Mom, thank you for your letter. I appreciate the apology, and I'm glad you're in therapy. I'm not ready for a relationship yet. Maybe I never will be. The damage runs deep, and I'm still healing from it. But I want you to know that I'm doing well. I'm happy. I've built a good life for myself. I hope you find peace. Rebecca. I sent it and felt a weight lift that I hadn't even known I was carrying. I didn't need her to change. I didn't need her to be the mother I'd always wanted. I just needed her to know that I'd survived despite her, not because of her, and I had. 5 years after I'd called off that wedding, after I'd stood up to Marcus and his family, and my own family, I stood on a stage in Stockholm accepting an award for my research. The work I'd done on early intervention strategies had changed the field, had helped thousands of people, had made a real difference in the world. As I looked out at the audience, I thought about my first life, about dying alone in that car, about all the potential that had died with me because I'd spent my life making myself small for people who didn't value me. This was what that potential looked like when it was allowed to flourish. This was what happened when you chose yourself. After the ceremony, I checked my phone and saw a message from an unknown number. I saw your award. I'm so proud of you. You deserve this and so much more. I'm sorry I couldn't be the person who helped you get here. I'm working on being better. Not for you, but for me. I hope you're happy, Rebecca. You earned it. Marcus, I read it once, then blocked the number. He was right about one thing. I had earned this, but not by staying with him. Not by sacrificing myself on the altar of his needs. I'd earned it by walking away, by choosing myself, by refusing to die slowly in service to people who would never appreciate the sacrifice. I'd been given a second chance at life, and I'd used it to become the person I was always meant to be. Not Marcus's wife, not my family's disappointment, not anyone's servant or savior, just Rebecca. Dr. Rebecca Chen, award-winning researcher, independent woman, survivor, and I'd never been happier. That night, as I celebrated with colleagues who'd become true friends, I raised my glass in a silent toast to second chances, to standing up for yourself, to walking away from people who don't deserve you, to choosing yourself even when everyone tells you you're wrong, to surviving, to thriving, to never, ever going back. My phone buzzed one last time, another unknown number. I almost didn't look, but curiosity got the better of me. Rebecca, this is Catherine Whitmore. I know I'm probably the last person you want to hear from, but I wanted you to know that Marcus got married last year to someone who reminds me a lot of how you used to be, eager to please, willing to sacrifice everything for him. I watch her making the same mistakes you almost made, and I feel sick. I enabled my son to be a taker. I taught him that his needs were more important than anyone else's. I'm sorry I did that to you. I'm sorrier that I'm watching him do it to someone else. I hope you're well. You were smart to get away. Catherine. I read it twice, feeling a complicated mix of emotions. Part of me wanted to warn Marcus's new wife, to tell her to run, to share my story and spare her the pain. But I knew it wouldn't work. She'd have to learn the same way I did. Some lessons can only be learned through experience. I typed a response, then deleted it, then typed another and deleted that too. Finally, I settled on something simple. Thank you for telling me. I hope she finds her strength sooner than I found mine. I sent it, then blocked that number too. The past was finally truly behind me. I had my research, my career, my independence, my self-respect. I had everything I'd died without in my first life, and I'd fought like hell to get it. As I flew home to California the next day, I looked out the window at the clouds below and thought about that car, the one where I died alone, ignored, gasping for help that never came, that Rebecca was gone. This Rebecca had learned to save herself, and she'd never need rescuing again.